Well, good morning once again. Mike Honeycutt with the National Council for Agricultural Education, and so I'm going to talk to you about a very fun and exciting topic this morning, which is educational content standards. I'm sure that's what you all got out of bed to talk about this morning. And Dewey said I had all the time in the world to talk about it, so I hope you're ready for that. No, I won't bore you with it too much. I want to talk about, in particular, the National AgriFood Natural Resources content standards. Primarily, I know as Penn State's working on the clearinghouse and some other parts of projects that are ongoing, they're using these standards to connect and tie to and help tie them to the school-based agricultural education environment primarily. And one of the reasons that's very important, if those of you who work with schools or work with things like ag in the classroom, you know in this day and age that if you're not connected to particularly academic and technical content standards, that it's very, very difficult to get your content and to get your message into the classroom. So you have to demonstrate how it's helping with this culture of accountability that we're dealing with in the school environment. So I wanted to talk particularly about these AFNR standards and maybe help you understand a little bit more about their development. We are in the middle of a revision process currently to help you understand that and understand a little bit about how they work and how we use them in the school-based agricultural education environment. So as you see here, they were developed in 2009 and really was a reaction to, really thinking about what do students need to be learning in agriculture. We have a lot of different types of ag programs across the country in middle schools and high schools, community colleges, so on and so forth. And we have a lot of different content and instruction that was going on. And so we felt like we needed to provide some standardization out there about what should be taught in agricultural education to let local school districts and states, how they work politically in their educational environment, to adapt to. So pretty much we wanted to make sure that we had an example out there for agricultural education that was rigorous and relevant. That was the big buzzwords of those days 5 years ago, and still pretty relevant today, that in career and technical education, of which agricultural education in the schools is a part of, that we wanted to make sure that content was rigorous and relevant and would not reflect that this is a dumping ground for students who can't hack it academically, that it's a true academic career technical education program that's helping drive students towards careers in high need areas within our industries. So you'll see as you look at those that we have clear performance indicators, clear measurement factors that will help the student access, help the teacher or whatever body who's doing the assessment to measure student learning and to be able to track and note success in that area. So as I said, and one of the things we wanted to be careful of is it's been, community-based program planning and those types of aspects have long been a part of good agricultural education. So we did not want it to be a substitution for that, but we wanted it to be an enhancement of that. We recognize that in developing curriculum and what needs to happen in a local ag program, that local advisory boards, the community, the industry partners in that area need to be a part of developing what type of curriculum they want for their local school, but we could provide this as a guideline. So our intent was never for this to become, hey, this is the national standard and everybody has to do this, and you don't do it, you can't play. So that I wanted to make sure we were clear about that. So you may not see these directly reflected in programs, but we hope that they would influence or provide people guidance. As far as the organization and structure of those standards, very wordy here on the slide, but primarily, we have the career cluster standards, and then we have 8 AFNR pathways like agribusiness systems and animal systems, plant science systems, environmental, power structure technical systems. So within that, you have a pathway content standard, which shows the broad knowledge that is covered in that particular career pathway, so that large swath of agriculture or the agricultural industry. And then within that, you have the performance elements. So as it says, generally there's 5 to 10 performance elements. Those are the major topical areas that students need to understand within that pathway. And then we get more precise with our performance indicators. So that's an indication of the actual knowledge, ability, skill that needs to be developed within that particular performance element. So you see it's kind of layered building up to overall competence in a specific pathway. And then at the end, we actually have the measurements, and you'll see that when we see an example here in a minute of how that's leveled out. So within that, we go all the way down to saying what's level 1 competence, level 2, level 3. Particularly level 1 has typically been, now we did this, one of the things we found in our revision, thanks to great states like Florida, Dr. Barrick, who start school-based ag ed at the pre-K level or something like that, we found that we initially thought level 1 is exploratory, so it's kind of early high school. And at level 2 would be later high school, 11th and 12th grade level. And that our level 3 competence would be actually early college. We're learning that we're having difficulty or getting some pushback from our educators in actually associating ages with those levels because students could start in 7th grade. So exploratory could be 7th grade, and maybe they could get further in competence further along. And particularly in level 3, where we have students who are actually getting college credit from a community college or somewhere else before they even leave high school. So we see students, we didn't really think students would get to level 3 in the high school environment, but in some cases that's happening as we're rushing kids through to degrees and things of that nature, as that's become politically expedient. So we kind of have to deal with that a little bit. So in our next revision, we may not refer to age levels in level 1, 2, or 3, but just leave it as that's the areas of competence. So if you look at the document, you actually have a copy of the career cluster standards in your booklet. And so you can see those. That this is about what you have is about 1/10 of the entire document because it doesn't include the 8 technical career pathways, but includes the career cluster standards. And there's magic behind that because that's where we have safety and a lot of those other things embedded, because that's not really, we don't want to cover safety in animal science, safety in each area. Safety is an overall concept that all students who are in career and technical education need to be exposed to, regardless of what pathway they're in. Now, we still have it embedded in the technical areas, but we have it primarily in the career clusters. But when you look at a document, and you see this is the first one from our area in agribusiness systems. So you can see where the broad content statement is at the top. You see the performance element. In this case, it's utilizing economic principles to establish and manage an AFNR enterprise. And then you can see as it goes down there, you see more specific performance indicators, such as being able to apply principles of capitalism in a business environment, being able to apply principles of entrepreneurship in businesses. And you can see further down, you see how that's level 1, 2, and 3. And if you ever work with educational content standards, and a lot of you probably have, you notice these elaborate number systems we have to use to keep everything straight. But you can see, for example, in that applying principles of capitalism, you know, at a level 1, as they begin ag education, we just want them to be able to recognize the principles of capitalism. But as we move them through the system, and this could be happening over a series of courses in a series of years, but as we move them forward, we want them to be able to differentiate types of ownership, be able to outline the structure of businesses, and then ultimately at level 3, they should be able to actually execute supply and demand principles. So if they were an entrepreneur or if they're working in a for-profit business, they should be able to actually execute on those principles and understand them enough to carry them out. So that just gives you an idea of how we structure that. But one of the things you also see, and that'll remain even after our revision, is that we have to align these to the national academic standards. Because as I said, if you want to get into the ag classroom, you got to be able to show the benefit of how it's going to help them meet their goals. And if ag education wants to exist in those public school environments primarily, we have to make sure that we demonstrate how we're contributing to the overall academic excellence of the school in this environment of accountability. So it's very, very important that we try to link to and align with nationally recognized standards. In this case, back in 2009, you can see in this particular one, we aligned to social studies, and it would tell you in the National Social Studies Standards where you would find the standards that component aligns to. So that would help our agricultural educators in communicating with their administrators and communicating up the chain that we are helping teach core academic standards through our agricultural education curriculum. Now, we're in the business area, so we see a lot of social studies, but in other areas we would see a great deal of science and math, but we even at times get into, as we've done these alignments, to language arts. That's one of the things that necessitated a revision, because we have a lot more academic standards now to deal with. One thing I will point out, when you look at the document that you have in your handout, if you go to when you look at it, go to page 9, and that's where you'll find in the career cluster standards a performance element about the importance of health, safety, and environmental management systems in organizations and their importance to performance and regulatory compliance. So when you look through that, you'll see the larger safety concepts there. I should mention that the reason we have the career cluster standards is that obviously a big part of agricultural education, a lot of you are familiar with FFA and that component of the program in the school-based environment. As I showed you yesterday when I was talking about supervised agricultural experiences, that total program component, we do have as a strong component of our program wanting to do personal development and personal growth. So we have career cluster standards beyond that kind of go across all of the different agricultural areas because we're take ourselves as being responsible for teaching the soft skills, the life skills, the employability skills that these young people will need to succeed, regardless of what their technical competence is if they choose to go into agriculture. Looking at the revision process, just to let you know a little bit about what's going on there, and for those of you who may be putting together educational materials for the clearinghouse or working on other parts of projects and are wanting to use this, one thing is to say, no, we're not coming out with something completely radically different than what you can go to our website and find today. I mean, we obviously have some very superficial things to do, such as if you look at the old standards, I think it still has our Alexandria, Virginia address on the front, and our business offices and myself are located in Indianapolis, Indiana now. And so there's things like that that we need to clean up. But looking at that process, it had been 5 years since we had first published these. We needed to make sure that our content was still relevant and current with the industry. And that's going to become harder and harder for us in the educational environment as the amount of knowledge in the world and technology is changing at such a rapid pace. Staying current with where business and industry is in terms of where we need to be aiming these kids is going to be critical. We also, as I said, had a lot of new academic and career readiness standards that have come out since 2009 that we needed to align to. Some of you have probably heard of the 21st century skills. We needed to make sure we had that alignment. We needed to make sure we were aligned with Common Core. It's popular in some states, hated in other states. Some states have adopted it and loved it, and now they hate it 2 years later. But regardless of all those debates, we have to deal with the world of Common Core because so many states are using that. So we needed to have those alignments and demonstrate how the AFNR curriculum could support Common Core. Next generation science skills. So a lot of things that are coming out that people are looking to in terms of the academic world, and we needed to make sure we had those alignments. How we're doing that process, we're doing it in several rounds, but just a few statistics that might be of interest. We've engaged 260 different subject matter experts from both education and industry that are going through the review process. And then we have a revision governing council I'm actually going to meet with this week because most of them are here in town for other things that are going on. And I'll spend some time with them as we're looking through the first round of revision. So we've actually been through our first round. Our subject matter experts have looked through and provided feedback. We've got a little bit of coordination to do, and then we'll turn our technical writers loose. Our plan is to send it out a second time for validation to that same group. We hope validation. If there's still major changes the second time, there'll be a third round. But we're hoping the second round will be validation, and then we can do a little bit more coordination. We're targeted and are on track to have that done March of 2015. So spring of next year, we should have our new revised as of 2015 document out into the public. But I don't expect that we will have a lot of changes there, because a lot of the content stays the same. As I like to tell people when in our world, people who've written curriculum at a state level, local level based on this, and they're worried about revision, as I like to tell them, photosynthesis is photosynthesis. That has not changed in the last 5 years. And so a lot of things will be the same. We just may have to add some technological components and do some things to make sure we're aligned with current educational structure. But other than that, I wouldn't expect that we'll see major revisions in that process. Thank you very much.